Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his face and looked at the dark tunnel ahead. The mining colony on Kepler 442b was his home now, even if it was a hard place to live. He had been working the deep mines for 3 years, pulling rare metals from the rocky ground. The work was tough, but Jake was tougher. The alarm started screaming at 6 in the morning. Jake dropped his tools and ran toward the surface with the other miners. Something was very wrong. The sirens meant only one thing: attack. When Jake reached the main level, he saw ships in the sky. They were not human ships. These ships were black and sharp like giant knives cutting through the air. Red beams of light shot down from them, hitting the colony buildings. People were running everywhere, screaming in fear. "Vorthak!" someone yelled. Jake had heard stories about them. They were aliens who took over planets and made slaves of everyone they found. They were strong, mean, and they never showed mercy. The black ships landed near the main buildings. Doors opened and out came the Vorthak soldiers. They were tall with gray skin and 4 arms. Each soldier carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They moved like hunters tracking prey. Jake saw his friends being captured. The Vorthak put metal bands around their necks and forced them into groups. Anyone who tried to fight was shot down. Jake wanted to help, but he knew he would just get killed or captured too. He ran back toward the mines. If he could hide in the deep tunnels, maybe he could survive. Maybe he could find a way to call for help. The tunnels went down for miles. Jake knew them better than anyone else on the colony. For hours, Jake heard the sounds of battle above. Explosions shook the ground, people screamed. Then everything went quiet. The silence was worse than the noise. Jake stayed hidden in the deepest part of the mines. He had some food and water that the miners kept for emergencies. He waited and listened. Sometimes he heard the heavy footsteps of Vorthak soldiers searching the upper tunnels. But they never came down as far as Jake was hiding. 3 days passed. Jake was getting weak from fear and hunger. He knew he could not stay hidden forever. But what could one man do against an army of aliens? On the 4th day, Jake heard something different. The sound came from above, but it was not Vorthak ships. This sound was softer, like a whisper in the air. Jake climbed up through the tunnels to get closer to the surface. Through a crack in the rocks, Jake saw a small ship landing near the ruins of the colony. This ship was white and round, very different from the black Vorthak ships. The door opened and out came creatures that looked like tall, thin people with blue skin and large eyes. Jake had never seen aliens like these before. They moved carefully, like they were afraid. One of them carried a device that beeped softly. They were looking for something. The leader of the blue aliens was talking to the others. Jake could not understand their language, but their voices sounded sad. They were looking at the destroyed buildings and the empty places where people used to be. Jake made a choice that would change everything. He climbed out of his hiding place and walked toward the aliens. His hands were up to show he was not dangerous. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might stop. The aliens saw him coming. They pointed their weapons at him, but they did not shoot. The leader, who wore a uniform with strange symbols, stepped forward. When this alien spoke, Jake was surprised to hear words he could understand. "Are you human?" the alien asked in slow, careful English. "Yes," Jake said. His voice was rough from days of hiding and fear. "My name is Jake Morrison. I work in the mines." The alien leader looked at the others. They talked quickly in their own language. Jake could tell they were arguing about something. One alien, smaller than the others, seemed to be arguing for Jake. The others looked worried. "I am Captain Veltar," the leader said to Jake. "This is Dr. Lisa. We are from the Zephyrian Alliance. We received a distress signal from this planet. The Vorthak took everyone," Jake said. "All my friends, all the workers. There were over 3,000 people here." Dr. Lisa stepped closer. She had kind eyes, even though they were so different from human eyes. "We are sorry," she said. "We came as fast as we could, but we are just a small scout ship. We cannot fight the Vorthak army." "Are there other survivors?" Captain Veltar asked. Jake shook his head. "I think I am the only one left. I hid in the deep mines. The Vorthak took everyone else to be slaves." The aliens talked again in their language. Their argument got louder. Finally, Dr. Lisa spoke to Jake again. "We can take you with us, but only you. Our ship is small and the Vorthak might come back. If we stay longer, we will all be captured." Jake looked at the ruins of his home. Somewhere out there, his friends were slaves on Vorthak ships. They were counting on someone to save them. But Jake was just one man. What could he do? "If I come with you," Jake said, "can you help me save the others?" Captain Veltar looked sad. "I do not know. Our people do not fight wars. We try to keep peace in the galaxy." "But you saved me," Jake said. "Dr. Lisa convinced us to try," the captain said. "She believes humans are special. She thinks you have qualities that other species do not have." Jake looked at Dr. Lisa. "What kind of qualities?" "You do not give up," she said. "Even when everything looks hopeless, humans keep fighting. We have studied your species. You care about each other in ways that are unusual." The ground started to shake. In the distance, Jake could see black ships coming back. The Vorthak were returning. "We must go now," Captain Veltar said. "Decide quickly." Jake took one last look at the colony. His friends were gone, but they were not dead. Somewhere in space, they were waiting for someone to come for them. Jake could not save them today, but maybe he could learn how to save them. "Tomorrow, I will come with you," Jake said. "But I promise you this, I will find a way to come back for them. All of them." As the Zephyrian ship lifted off, Jake watched his world get smaller below him. The Vorthak ships were landing again, but they would find nothing. Jake was free, and that meant hope was still alive. Dr. Lisa sat next to Jake as they flew toward the stars. "What will you do now?" she asked. Jake looked at her with eyes full of determination. "I am going to learn everything I can about your technology, your ships, and your weapons. Then I am going to build an army. And when I am ready, I am coming back to save every single human the Vorthak have taken." "That sounds impossible," Dr. Lisa said. Jake smiled for the first time in days. "You said humans do not give up. You're about to find out just how true that is." 6 months had passed since Jake arrived on New Haven, the capital world of the Zephyrian Alliance. The planet was beautiful, with floating cities that hung in the sky like jewels. The Zephyrians lived in peace and harmony, something Jake was still getting used to after his rough life in the mines. Jake worked every day with Dr. Lisa in her research lab. She taught him about Zephyrian technology while he shared human knowledge with her. Jake was amazed by their advanced machines and computers. The Zephyrians were amazed by how quickly Jake learned and how he found new ways to use their inventions. "Your brain works differently than ours," Dr. Lisa told him one morning. "We think in straight lines. You think in circles and find connections we never see." Jake was fixing a broken scanner when she said this. He had figured out how to make it work better than when it was new. "Humans have to be good at fixing things," he said. "On the mining colonies, if something breaks and you cannot fix it, people die." Dr. Lisa watched him work. "This is exactly what I told Captain Veltar. Humans have survival skills that most species have lost. You adapt to anything." But Jake was not just learning about machines. He was also learning about the galaxy and the species that lived in it. What he discovered made him angry and sad at the same time. The Vorthak Empire had been taking human slaves for over 5 years. They attacked human colonies and ships, taking people to work in their mines and factories. Jake found records showing that humans were now slaves on 12 different worlds. The total number was over 50,000 people. "Why does nobody stop them?" Jake asked Dr. Lisa. She looked uncomfortable. "The Alliance has peace treaties with the Vorthak. We agreed not to interfere with each other's territory. Most Alliance members want to avoid war." "But these are innocent people," Jake said. "They did nothing wrong." "I know," Dr. Lisa said quietly. "But our leaders believe that fighting the Vorthak would cause a bigger war. Many more people would die." Jake stared at the computer screen showing locations of human slave camps. Somewhere in those places were people like him, hoping someone would come to save them. The thought made his chest feel tight with anger. "I want to talk to your government," Jake said. "Maybe I can convince them to help." Dr. Lisa shook her head. "The High Council will not change their minds. Captain Veltar already tried to get them to send rescue missions. They said no." But Jake would not give up. He studied Zephyrian law and politics. He learned their language and their customs. When he finally got a chance to speak to the High Council, he was ready. The council chamber was huge, with seats arranged in a circle. 12 Zephyrian leaders sat looking down at Jake. He felt small, but he remembered his promise to save his people. "Honorable Council," Jake began, "I come to ask for your help in freeing human slaves held by the Vorthak Empire." The council leader, an old Zephyrian named Elder Zenth, spoke in a tired voice. "Human Jake Morrison, we understand your pain, but the Alliance cannot break our treaties. War would bring suffering to billions of people." "With respect, Elder," Jake said, "war has already come. The Vorthak bring war to every world they attack. They just do it to people who cannot fight back." Another council member spoke up. "The humans chose to live on dangerous frontier worlds. They knew the risks." Jake felt his anger rising, but he controlled it. Getting mad would not help his people. The humans on those worlds were miners, farmers, and scientists. They were not soldiers. They could not defend themselves against the Vorthak army. "This is exactly why the Alliance promotes peace," Elder Zenth said. "Violence only leads to more violence." "Then what about the 50,000 humans in Vorthak slave camps right now?" Jake asked. "What about the children who were born into slavery and have never seen freedom? Does your peace help them?" The council was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Elder Zenth spoke. "We are sorry for the suffering of your people, but the Alliance cannot risk war with the Vorthak Empire. Our decision is final." Jake left the council chamber feeling defeated, but not broken. If the Alliance would not help officially, he would have to find another way. That night, Jake sat in his small apartment staring at the stars. Dr. Lisa came to visit him. She looked as sad as he felt. "I am sorry," she said. "I hoped they would listen to you." "It is not over," Jake said. "There has to be another way." Dr. Lisa sat down next to him. "What will you do?" Jake was quiet for a minute, thinking. Then he looked at her with determination in his eyes. "If I cannot get official help, I will find unofficial help. There must be other humans out there who escaped. There must be people in the Alliance who do not agree with the Council." "That would be very dangerous," Dr. Lisa warned. "If the Council finds out you are working against their policy, they could send you away from Alliance space." Jake stood up and walked to his computer. "Then I better be very careful not to get caught." Over the next few weeks, Jake began reaching out through hidden communication channels. He used skills he learned in the mines, where workers had to send secret messages to avoid being caught by cruel supervisors. The first person who answered was Commander Rex Davis, a human military officer who had survived a Vorthak attack on a transport ship. Rex had been hiding on a small Alliance world trying to organize other human survivors. "Jake Morrison," Rex said through the encrypted video call. "Dr. Lisa told me about you. She said you want to fight back." "I want to save our people," Jake said. "All of them." "That is a big job," Rex said. "The Vorthak have our people spread across 12 worlds, each one heavily guarded." "Then we start small and build up," Jake said. "How many humans can you contact?" Rex smiled for the first time in their conversation. "More than you might think. Humans are good at staying alive and finding each other. Give me some time, and I can put you in touch with survivors all over the galaxy." As the days passed, Jake's secret network began to grow. Dr. Lisa helped by providing him with advanced communication equipment and computer access. She believed in what Jake was doing, even if she could not do it openly. Jake learned about Kate Sullivan, a pilot who had escaped from a Vorthak prison ship and was now running supplies to hidden human communities. He found Ben Carter, an engineer who was working inside a slave camp, secretly building tools and weapons for a future escape attempt. Each person Jake contacted told him about more humans who were fighting back in small ways. They were sabotaging Vorthak equipment, helping other slaves escape and gathering information about enemy operations. We are not as helpless as the Vorthak think, Rex told Jake during one of their planning sessions. Humans are hard to keep down. The problem is, we are all working alone. We need coordination. That is what I want to provide, Jake said. One person rescuing 1 or 2 people is not enough. We need to think bigger. Jake began studying Vorthak military tactics and technology. He learned about their weaknesses and their blind spots. He also started looking at the other species in the Alliance, trying to find ones that might secretly support a human resistance. Dr. Lisa brought him intelligence reports that she was not supposed to share. The Krathari respect strength, she told him. They might help if you can prove humans are true warriors. The ethereal collective hates slavery of any kind. They might provide information support. What about regular Zephyrians? Jake asked. Do any of them disagree with the Council's decision? Dr. Lisa looked around to make sure they were alone. Captain Veltar has been asking questions about Vorthak military movements. I think he is planning something, but he has not told anyone. What it is? Jake felt hope growing in his chest. Maybe he was not as alone as he thought. Maybe there were others who believed that doing the right thing was worth the risk. Late at night, Jake would look at the star maps showing where human slaves were being held. The task seemed impossible. 50,000 people spread across 12 heavily defended worlds. But Jake remembered what Dr. Lisa had said about humans. They did not give up. Each day brought new contacts and new possibilities. The network was growing stronger. Jake was learning that humans had one advantage the Vorthak had not counted on. When you hurt one human, you made enemies of all humans. And humans were very good at holding grudges. The rescue that had saved one human was about to become something much bigger. Jake could feel it coming like a storm building on the horizon. The Vorthak thought they were safe because the Alliance would not fight them officially. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who fight unofficially. 3 months later, Jake's secret network had grown beyond anything he had imagined. What started as desperate messages between scattered survivors had become something powerful and organized. Humans across the galaxy were talking to each other, sharing information and planning together. Commander Rex Davis had found over 200 human survivors hiding throughout Alliance space. Each one had a story of escape or rescue, and each one wanted to help save the others still in slavery. Kate Sullivan had become the network's main pilot and supply coordinator. Her small ship, which she had stolen from Vorthak pirates, could sneak past most security systems. She flew dangerous missions to bring weapons and communication equipment to human resistance cells. The Vorthak never expect us to fight back. Kate told Jake during one of their planning meetings. They think humans are weak because we got captured. They are about to learn how wrong they are. Ben Carter was still working inside a slave camp on the planet Kythera, but now he was not working alone. Through Jake's network, Ben had connected with resistance fighters in 6 other camps. They were sharing plans and coordinating their efforts. I have been building weapons and tools in secret, Ben reported through an encrypted message. The Vorthak guards think we are just fixing their equipment. They do not realize we are improving it for our own use. The humans were proving to be incredibly good at adapting alien technology. Jake had learned to modify Zephyrian stealth generators so they would work on human-built ships. The modifications actually made the stealth systems better than the originals. Ben had figured out how to combine human engineering with captured Vorthak energy weapons. The new designs were more powerful and more reliable than what the Vorthak were using. How do humans do this? Dr. Lisa asked Jake as she studied his latest invention. You take our technology and make it better in ways we never thought possible. Jake was working on a new type of communication system that could not be detected by Vorthak sensors. Humans learn by doing, he explained. We take things apart, put them back together, and see what happens. Most other species seem to use technology exactly the way it was designed. That is because we follow safety protocols and established procedures, Dr. Lisa said. Jake grinned. We follow the protocol of whatever works. Sometimes that means breaking a few rules. The human innovations were spreading throughout the resistance network. Every new idea was shared with everyone else. Jake realized this was another human advantage. They naturally worked together and shared knowledge. Word of the human resistance was beginning to reach other species in the alliance. The Krathari, a warrior race that respected strength and courage, were quietly impressed by human determination. A Krathari merchant named Gorak began accidentally leaving weapon shipments where human resistance fighters could find them. The ethereal collective, masters of information and computer networks, started sharing intelligence about Vorthak ship movements and military plans. They claimed it was for research purposes, but Jake knew they were secretly supporting the human cause. Even some Zephyrians were beginning to help. Captain Veltar, now promoted to admiral, was asking many questions about Vorthak operations. He was also ordering more patrol ships to areas near human slave camps, claiming it was for routine security sweeps. But the Vorthak were starting to notice that something was wrong. Their slave operations were becoming less efficient. Equipment kept breaking down in mysterious ways. Transportation convoys were suffering more attacks than usual. General Tharkas, the Vorthak military commander in charge of slave operations, called a meeting of his officers on the command ship, Dark Victory. Human productivity is down 30% across all facilities, he growled to his subordinates. Escape attempts are increasing. Our convoys are being attacked by forces that seem to know exactly where we will be. Colonel Vex, his intelligence officer, brought up a holographic display showing recent incidents. The attacks show coordination and planning that is beyond normal slave resistance. Someone is organizing them. Impossible, General Tharkas said. Humans are primitive and disorganized. They cannot mount a significant resistance operation. With respect, General, Colonel Vex said carefully, the evidence suggests otherwise. The humans are using technology that should be beyond their capabilities. They are communicating across multiple star systems. They are obtaining weapons and equipment that we cannot trace. General Tharkas slammed his 4 fists on the table. Then find out how they are doing it and stop them. Use whatever methods are necessary. The Vorthak began increasing security and interrogating human slaves more harshly, but this only made the humans more determined to fight back. News of the increased brutality spread through Jake's network, making every human survivor more committed to the resistance. Jake was in his lab when he received an emergency message from Ben Carter. The transmission was brief and coded, but Jake understood immediately. The Vorthak were planning to move all human slaves from the outer camps to more secure facilities closer to Vorthak military bases. They are getting scared, Rex said when Jake told him the news. They know something is happening, but they do not know what. This could be our chance, Kate added from her ship somewhere in deep space. If they are moving large numbers of prisoners, those transport convoys will be vulnerable during the journey. Jake stared at the star chart showing the planned convoy routes. The logistics were incredible, thousands of humans being moved across multiple star systems. It would be the largest prisoner transport operation in Vorthak history. We cannot hit all the convoys, Jake said. We do not have enough ships or people. Then we hit the ones we can, Rex replied. Every human we save is a victory. But Jake was thinking bigger. What if we do not try to rescue them during transport? What if we wait until they reach the new facilities? That would be even more difficult, Kate pointed out. The new camps will be more heavily guarded. Jake was looking at something else. On the charts, the locations of the new facilities were all relatively close to each other. What if that is exactly what we want? Instead of trying to coordinate rescues across 12 different worlds, we would only have to coordinate rescues across 3 or 4 worlds. Dr. Lysa, who had been listening quietly, suddenly understood what Jake was thinking. You want them to concentrate all the human slaves in one area. The Vorthak think they are making the humans more secure, Jake said, but they are actually making them more vulnerable to a coordinated strike. Rex was quiet for a moment. Then, he started to smile. You are talking about a massive rescue operation, something that would require hundreds of ships and thousands of fighters. That is exactly what I am talking about, Jake said. The Vorthak have been underestimating humans for too long. It is time to show them what humans can really do when we work together. Over the next few weeks, Jake's network began preparing for something unprecedented. The scattered resistance groups started coordinating their efforts like never before. Human survivors throughout the galaxy began pooling their resources, their knowledge, and their courage. The network that had started with one rescued human was becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. A united human resistance with the support of alien allies who believed in justice and freedom. Jake worked 18 hours a day, coordinating communications, sharing technical innovations, and planning the massive operation that was taking shape. He had help from unexpected sources. Admiral Veltar began providing intelligence about Vorthak fleet movements. Krithari weapons dealers started offering special discounts to human buyers. Ethereal hackers shared access codes for Vorthak communication networks. "Are you sure this will work?" Dr. Lysa asked Jake one evening as they worked late in the lab. Jake looked at the communication board showing active contacts with human resistance fighters across the galaxy. The board was full of green lights, each one representing a human who refused to give up. "I do not know if it will work," Jake admitted. "But I know we have to try. Every day we wait, more humans suffer in those camps. Every day we delay, more children are born into slavery." Dr. Lysa nodded. "You have changed since you arrived here. You were just a mining engineer trying to survive. Now you are a leader planning to change the galaxy." Jake thought about that. "I am still just a mining engineer. But mining taught me something important. When you find a vein of valuable ore, you do not stop digging until you get every piece. The Vorthak made a mistake when they left me behind. They left behind someone who knows how to dig deep and never give up." The preparation continued. The network grew stronger every day. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the Vorthak were about to discover that rescuing one human had consequences they never could have imagined. The galaxy was about to see what humans could accomplish when they had something worth fighting for. Operation Homecoming began at exactly 800 Galactic Standard Time across 4 different star systems. Jake stood on the bridge of the flagship New Earth, watching as the massive Liberation fleet dropped out of hyperspace around the planet New Kythera. 3,000 ships from dozens of Alliance species had coordinated their arrival to the minute. It was the most complex military operation in galactic history. "All fleets report ready, Admiral," came the voice of Captain Stone, Jake's human communications officer. Jake still felt strange being called Admiral, but he had learned to accept the responsibility that came with the rank. "Signal all ships," Jake ordered. "Operation Homecoming is now active. Remember, our goal is to bring every human home alive." On his tactical display, Jake could see the other 3 fleets beginning their attacks on Grimhold, Iron Valley, and Despair Station. Each fleet was led by experienced Alliance commanders, but they all followed the same plan that Jake had helped develop. The Vorthak defenders around New Kythera were caught completely by surprise. Their sensors showed an impossible number of ships appearing from nowhere, using advanced stealth technology that they had never encountered before. General Tharkus, commanding from his fortress on the planet's surface, could not believe the reports his officers were giving him. 3,000 ships, he roared. "That is impossible. The Alliance does not have that many military vessels." "Sir, they are not all military ships," Colonel Vex reported while studying the sensor data. "Many appear to be converted civilian vessels. Cargo ships, passenger liners, even mining craft. But they are all armed and moving in perfect coordination." Jake's plan was working exactly as intended. The Liberation fleet was not just Alliance military ships. It included vessels from hundreds of different species, all volunteering to help free the human slaves. Merchant captains had armed their cargo ships. Civilian pilots had joined Krithari fighter squadrons. Even Zephyrian scientists had converted research vessels into rescue ships. "Begin the assault," Jake commanded. The battle for New Kythera was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vorthak weapons, designed to intimidate slaves and destroy lightly armed colony ships, proved inadequate against a fleet that included the best military technology from dozens of advanced species. Disakan, Ethereal Collective's cyber warfare specialist, disabled Vorthak communication networks within minutes. Krathari fighters, piloted by humans who had learned their tactics, swept through the orbital defenses like a storm. Zephyrian heavy cruisers, supported by human-modified weapon systems, punched through the planetary shields as if they were made of paper. But the real key to the operation was happening on the planet's surface. Ben Carter and his team of human engineers, who had been secretly placed in the slave camps weeks earlier, activated their hidden sabotage devices exactly on schedule. Power grids failed across the planet. Shield generators shut down. Communication arrays went dark. The Vorthak found themselves fighting blind and deaf while their prisoners suddenly had access to hidden weapons and equipment that the Resistance had been stockpiling for months. Jake led the landing force personally, using his knowledge of mining tunnels and industrial facilities to guide the rescue teams. The Vorthak had built their slave camps using the same basic design as the mining colony where Jake had been rescued. This time, he knew exactly where to find the prisoners. Sector 7 is secure, reported Kate Sullivan, leading a squadron of human and Krathari pilots. We have freed 800 people and are moving to the next facility. Medical teams to Sector 12, called Lisa Hayes, coordinating the rescue operations. We have injured prisoners who need immediate attention. The liberation proceeded, with incredible efficiency. Every human in the slave camps had been secretly informed about the rescue operation through the Resistance network. They were ready when the liberation forces arrived, helping to guide their rescuers and evacuate. Quickly, General Tharkas realized that his forces were being overwhelmed. He sent a desperate message to the other Vorthak commanders. All units fall back to the fortress. We will make our final stand here. But when Tharkas tried to contact the other slave worlds, he discovered that the same attacks were happening everywhere. The liberation forces had struck all 4 worlds simultaneously, and the Vorthak were losing every battle. Jake personally led the final assault on the main fortress. The Vorthak defenders fought desperately, but they were facing an enemy they had never understood. Humans who had been slaves for months, armed with the best alliance weapons and fighting alongside alien allies, proved to be unstoppable. When the fortress fell, Jake found the control room where General Tharkas was making his last stand. The Vorthak general looked at Jake with 4 eyes full of hatred and disbelief. "This is impossible," Tharkas snarled. "Humans are weak slaves. You cannot defeat the Vorthak Empire." Jake looked at the general with calm confidence. "You made one big mistake, General. You thought that rescuing one human would not matter. You never understood that when you rescue one human, you make allies of all humans, and humans never forget their friends or forgive their enemies." The Battle of New Cathera ended with complete victory for the liberation forces. Similar victories were reported from the other 3 worlds. In a single day, Operation Homecoming had freed over 50,000 human slaves and destroyed the Vorthak Empire's entire slave operation. But the victory had consequences that reached far beyond the rescue operation. News of the human liberation spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring enslaved populations of other species to rise up against their oppressors. The Vorthak Empire, revealed to be weaker than anyone had believed, faced rebellions on dozens of worlds. Jake stood in the main hangar of the New Earth, watching as the last transport ships carried freed humans away from the former slave worlds. Many of the rescued people were weak from months of harsh treatment, but their eyes were bright with hope and freedom. Admiral Veltar approached Jake with a datapad, showing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. "Admiral Morrison, we are receiving requests for assistance from 17 different species that are currently enslaved by various empires. They have heard about Operation Homecoming and want our help." Jake looked at the star charts showing the locations of slave camps throughout the galaxy. There were millions of beings suffering under conditions similar to what the humans had endured. The job was far from over. "What do you think we should do?" Veltar asked. Jake remembered Dr. Lysa, who had died because she believed in helping others. He thought about all the humans who had suffered in Vorthak camps and all the aliens who were still suffering in other places. He thought about the promise he had made in the mining tunnels, to never let this happen again. "We formed the Galactic Liberation Corps," Jake said. "Human and alien volunteers working together to end slavery throughout the galaxy. Anyone who wants to enslave innocent people will have to face all of us." 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Liberation Fleet's new headquarters, watching as rescue ships launched on their latest mission. The Galactic Liberation Corps had grown into the most respected organization in Alliance space, with volunteers from over 100 different species. The message was clear throughout the galaxy. If you enslaved one innocent being, you made enemies of everyone who believed in freedom, and those enemies would not stop coming until justice was done. Commander Rex Davis joined Jake at the observation window. Did you ever imagine it would grow this big when you first started building the Resistance network? Jake watched as a ship carrying the flag of New Earth, humanity's first interstellar colony, departed for a rescue mission in a distant star system. I just wanted to save my friends from the mining colony. I never thought it would change the whole galaxy. That is what makes humans special, said Dr. Lysa's voice from behind them. Jake turned to see his old friend, now serving as the Liberation Corps' chief science officer. She had survived the attack on Mercy Station and dedicated her life to the cause that had cost so many of her colleagues their lives. What do you mean? Jake asked. Dr. Lisa smiled with the same kindness she had shown when she first convinced Captain Veltar to rescue Jake from the destroyed colony. Other species think about themselves, their families, maybe their planets. Humans think about everyone. When you rescue one human, you save someone who will spend the rest of their life making sure no one else needs to be rescued. Jake looked out at the stars, thinking about all the worlds where beings still lived in chains and all the rescue missions yet to come. The galaxy was a big place, full of suffering that needed to end. But it was also full of species who had learned from humanity's example that freedom was worth fighting for. The Vorthak Empire had rescued one human, thinking it did not matter. They had learned too late that it mattered more than they could have imagined. That one rescue had grown into a galaxy-wide movement that would never stop fighting until every being was free. And somewhere in the deep tunnels of the abandoned mining colony on Kepler 442b, now transformed into a memorial and training center. For the Liberation Corps, a simple sign marked the place where it all began. They rescued one human, so we came back to save them all. Everything changed when the Vorthak attacked Mercy Station. Mercy Station was a Zephyrian medical facility that treated sick and injured people from all over the Alliance. It was clearly marked with medical symbols and had never been involved in any military operations. The station was protected by ancient treaties that even the Vorthak had always respected. But General Tharkas was getting desperate. His intelligence officers had tracked some suspicious communication signals to the area near Mercy Station. Without bothering to investigate properly, he ordered an attack. The assault was brutal and quick. Vorthak warships surrounded the medical station and demanded to search it for human terrorists. When the Zephyrian doctors refused to allow armed soldiers into their hospital, the Vorthak opened fire. Over 800 innocent people died in the attack, including Dr. Lisa's research team and many of her closest friends. The Vorthak found no evidence of any resistance activity, because there was none. The communication signals had come from a nearby trading post, not the medical station. Jake was in his lab when Admiral Veltar came to tell him the news. The Admiral's blue skin was pale with shock and grief. Dr. Lysa survived, he said quietly, but most of her colleagues did not. The Vorthak killed doctors, nurses, patients, even children who were being treated for diseases. Jake felt like someone had hit him in the stomach. Dr. Lisa had been his first friend among the aliens, the person who had convinced the Zephyrians to save him. She had risked her career to help him build the resistance network. Now, her friends were dead because the Vorthak were trying to stop what Jake had started. "This is my fault," Jake said. "If I had not built the resistance network, the Vorthak would not have been looking for us." Admiral Veltar looked at Jake with eyes full of pain and anger. "No, Jake Morrison. This is the Vorthak's fault. They chose to attack innocent people. They chose to break treaties and murder healers." The Admiral was quiet for a moment, then he spoke again. "The attack on Mercy Station has changed everything. The Zephyrian High Council is meeting an emergency session. The Peace faction is no longer in control. Within hours, the news of the massacre spread throughout Alliance space. The peaceful Zephyrians were outraged by the unprovoked attack on their medical station. Other Alliance species were horrified that the Vorthak had violated the ancient laws protecting hospitals and healers. Elder Zenth, who had refused to help the human resistance, called Jake to the High Council chambers. But this time the atmosphere was completely different. The council members were not calm and peaceful. They were angry and ready for action. "Human Jake Morrison," Elder Zenth said, "we owe you an apology. You warned us that the Vorthak bring war to those who cannot defend themselves. We should have listened." Jake stood before the council, still wearing his work clothes from the lab. "Elder Zenth, I am sorry for your losses. Dr. Lisa and her team were good people who only wanted to help others. They were murdered because the Vorthak fear what you have been building," another council member said. "Your resistance network has made them desperate and dangerous." Elder Zenth stood up from his chair. "The High Council has voted. The Zephyrian Alliance will provide official support for human liberation efforts. Admiral Veltar will coordinate our military assistance." Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You mean the Alliance will help us rescue the slaves?" "More than that," Admiral Veltar said as he entered the chamber. "We are prepared to go to war with the Vorthak Empire if necessary, but we want the humans to lead the operation. This is your fight, and you understand it better than we do." Over the following days, other Alliance species made similar announcements. The Krithari officially pledged their elite warriors to support human liberation forces. The Ethereal Collective offered their advanced cyber warfare capabilities. Even species that Jake had never heard of began volunteering ships and supplies. The attack on Mercy Station had accomplished the opposite of what General Tharkus intended. Instead of scaring the Alliance into abandoning the humans, it had united them in support of human freedom. Jake found himself at the center of the largest military alliance in galactic history. Species that had been neutral or suspicious were now eager to help. The resistance network that he had built in secret was becoming the foundation of a multi-species liberation force. Commander Rex Davis arrived on New Haven to help coordinate the military planning. Kate Sullivan brought her small fleet of pilots and scout ships. Even Ben Carter was extracted from his slave camp by a daring Krithari rescue mission so he could help with the technical preparations. "This is incredible," Rex said as he looked at the massive fleet assembling in orbit around New Haven. 6 months ago, we were scattered survivors hiding from the Vorthak. Now we have the backing of half the galaxy. Jake was studying the tactical displays showing Vorthak military positions. The Vorthak made 2 big mistakes. First, they underestimated what humans could do when we worked together. Second, they attacked innocent people and made the whole alliance angry. Dr. Lisa, who had recovered from her injuries, was working with Jake to plan the technical aspects of the rescue operation. "The Vorthak have moved almost all human slaves to 4 heavily defended worlds," she reported. "New Kithera, Grimhold, Iron Valley, and Despair Station." "Cheerful names," Kate commented. "The Vorthak are not very good at public relations." Ben Carter, who looked healthier after weeks of good food and medical care, was studying the layouts of the prison facilities. "I know these designs. The Vorthak use the same basic pattern for all their slave camps. If we can break through the outer defenses, the interior should be familiar territory." Jake was looking at the bigger picture. "We cannot just rescue the slaves and leave. The Vorthak will just capture more humans later. We need to make sure this never happens again." "Admiral." Veltar nodded. "The Alliance Military Command agrees. This operation will not just be a rescue mission. It will be a complete defeat of Vorthak slave operations." The plan they developed was ambitious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. Operation Homecoming would involve simultaneous attacks on all 4 slave worlds, supported by the largest combined fleet ever assembled. The goal was not just to free the human slaves, but to destroy the Vorthak Empire's ability to enslave anyone ever again. Jake was promoted to Admiral in the Alliance Defense Force, a rank that would have seemed impossible when he was hiding in mine tunnels just a year ago. But he had proven that humans could adapt to anything, including leadership roles they never expected. "Are you ready for this?" Dr. Lisa asked Jake as they watched the final ships joining the Liberation Fleet. Jake thought about all the humans, still suffering in Vorthak slave camps. He thought about his friends from the mining colony who had been waiting for rescue for over a year. He thought about the children who had been born into slavery and had never known freedom. "I made a promise when you rescued me," Jake said. "I promised I would come back for all of them. Now I finally have the chance to keep that promise." The Liberation Fleet was the largest military force in Alliance history. Over 3,000 ships from dozens of different species all united behind a single goal, ensuring that no human remained in chains. But the fleet was just part of the operation. The real key to success would be the human resistance fighters who were already inside the slave camps, ready to disable security systems and guide the rescue forces to their targets. General Tharkus and his Vorthak forces had no idea what was coming. They thought the attack on Mercy Station had solved their human problem. They were about to discover that attacking innocent people had only made their human problem much, much worse. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. What happened when you rescued one human and gave him the resources to save them all?